5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to round 23 of the Formula One World Championship as the circus makes its final stop of the season. Abu Dhabi plays host, and as ever, while the sun is blazing down on the track at the moment, in an hour it will be darkness and everyone will go out to duel in the desert. At least that's what we're hoping for. I'm Jenny Gow. Alongside me is Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator. And Harry, it's been an epic season for so many reasons, not to mention that Max Verstappen has been imperious, and he goes into this in pole position. And the same again?
I would think so. You can't bet against Max Verstappen, and even Dr. Helmut Marko tried to bet against him in qualifying, and that didn't go his way either. Verstappen hasn't looked particularly comfortable in the practice session so far this weekend, but then he pulled it out of the bag when he needed to take what was his 12th pole position of the season. He's looking at trying to secure win at number 19 at the end of 58 laps today around this Yas Marina circuit. So easy to kind of gloss over what he's achieved this year, but we've had domination before in Formula One. It's not new, but this is on another level and will go down in history as one of the best seasons in terms of driver and team performance that we've ever seen.
Yes, been a very dominant year, I think. Alice Powell, W Series race winner, also alongside me. Thank you for joining us, Alice. What words can you, as a driver, sum up Max's achievements this year?
Oh, and my vocabulary is not very
Come on, put you to the test.
I think he's had an outstanding year, you know, and we said a lot about him yesterday and on the podcast as well. He's just been phenomenal. Him and that Red Bull combination, I think that's a great seat to be in if you want to be the number 2 sort of driver in such a great car, but then up against Max Verstappen, you know, who runs that Red Bull team, and, you know, rightly so, because what a talent. And I know we sit here and we go, well, yeah, but it's been boring. Look how many races he's won. And I'm trying to be positive, as always. Some people might not agree with me, but it's a pleasure to have the chance to watch him, and just the moves he makes, how bold. Okay, sometimes I think he's a bit over the top with his moves, but just as an overall driver and an overall package, I think he's outstanding.
So just over 12 minutes until race starts. The flypast has just taken place, and the plumes of smoke coming down and floating around the grid as people say their farewells for the season. And especially poignant is this tribute to Franz Tost, who is the team principal at AlphaTauri, and he steps away after a prolific time in F1, Harry. And each of the drivers and team principals are actually going up to him and giving him a hug or a handshake, a slap, the nicest way. That came out wrong.
A hearty slap, a friendly slap.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It will be Franz Tost's last race, as the team principals come over to Franz Tost as well and show their respect to him. And he's actually being presented with an F1 car replica trophy by the CEO of Formula One, Stefano Domenicalo, and Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the president of the FIA. Thank you, Franz, from the F1 family, is what it reads on the glass surrounds. And that is to celebrate one of the longest careers and tenures of a team principal ever in Formula One history. The man responsible for so many young drivers going on to achieve such success in Formula One, particularly, of course, within that Red Bull family. Yuki Tsunoda stands aside him as his current driver, who he's actually running a tribute helmet to Franz, owes a lot of his career to Franz Tost, as do many. You go back through the Toro Rosso archives and the AlphaTauri archives, and those on the current grid, you know, you're looking at the likes of Sainz, Gasly, Albon, not to mention Max Verstappen. Franz Tost is an easy name, perhaps not to almost remember in the mainstream world of Formula One, but he is a man that has been instrumental in a lot of Formula One careers. So he will be greatly missed, but we look forward to seeing what he goes on to do.
Right, pole position and front row of the grid, you have Max Verstappen, as ever, starting in that best place to start for any race, but especially here, alongside Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. We'll hear from Leclerc in just a minute, but this was Max Verstappen speaking about what has been a tough weekend until qualifying.
Max, your 12th pole position of the season here in Abu Dhabi, but would you say that was maybe one of your most hard-fought, most satisfying ones, given how tough the car's been this weekend?
Looking at how the weekend went up until that point, for sure, it was a good qualifying. I don't know why that is, that we have been doing quite well here lately. But yeah, of course, very, very pleased with that. This is the best starting position as well for today. And hopefully, of course, we can have a strong race.
What kind of race car do you think you've got out here today? And you've got Charles alongside you for the third time in a row. Some fast McLarens nearby as well.
Yeah, I mean, normally our car is always quite good in the race. So it's all about just looking after your tyres. Hopefully, we can do that well.
And if you win today, you'll pull ahead of Sebastian Vettel in the all-time win record. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, it's very cool, but it's also something that I never thought was possible in the first place. But now that we are here, of course, I hope that we can add a few more.
10 minutes until the start of the race, Verstappen in pole position. Harry, can you just run us through the rest of the grid, please?
Yep, so joining Verstappen on that front row will be Charles Leclerc, who was actually a bit surprised to pull that one out of the bag when it came to qualifying that Ferrari. Both Ferraris have been struggling a little bit. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, he will be the Rookie of the Year officially at the end of this race in third. Russell and Norris the top five. A couple of outliers to look forward to further down in the field. Hamilton down in 11th, Sainz down in 16th.
OK, let's hear it from the man who starts alongside Max Verstappen. It is Charles Leclerc.
Charles, you've got your third front row start in a row here, but I'd say, was it a bit of a surprising one here, given the pace of the car so far this weekend?
Oh yeah, definitely. This one was a big surprise. We did not expect it, and neither coming into Q3. Normally we kind of expect where we are going to be when we start Q3, but this time nowhere near. So it was a really good surprise. But now we've got 58 laps to do, which will be very difficult to keep the position. But I'll do absolutely everything, as I've got nothing to lose. The only thing that matters is a second place in the constructors.
I was going to say there is a lot on the line for that P2 and that fight with Mercedes. Does that kind of change your approach and how much you might want to attack Max going into turn one?
At the end, I think we just have to focus on ourselves, and if we do the best job possible with the car we have today, then we'll do the count later on. But one thing for sure is that if we are fighting with Mercedes on track, I'll go for it.
You've got a McLaren nearby, a Mercedes as well. It is quite a competitive field at the minute, isn't it?
Yes, the McLaren are very strong in race pace, especially the Mercedes also. We expect them to be strong in race pace. The Red Bull obviously are going to be the strongest today in race pace. So it's going to be a tough race. Time management is going to be everything, and we've got to do a good job like we did in Vegas, even though we'll be managing different issues.
So Harry, there is a lot still on the line, and we're talking millions rather than points, really.
Absolutely. The constructors' battle rages on, as Charles mentioned. That battle for second, we think, is around $9-10 million in between each constructor position.
Loose change.
Loose change, exactly, for us. But for Mercedes and Ferrari, 4 points separating them. Not the only battle to watch out for either. The battle for fourth between McLaren and Aston Martin, just 11 points between those two. But McLaren with the advantage at the moment in terms of grid position over Aston Martin. And the battle for seventh between the back markers. Williams, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo and Haas, just a handful of points separate those teams.
We went all-American before you sat down, Alice, and we were talking about offence, defence. How much aggression does someone like, I don't know, Yuki Tsunoda, who starts in sixth, have to go out there and show, or does he try and drive defensively? What's the mindset?
I'd say he's always quite aggressive, isn't he? I don't think we've ever really seen a Yuki that's not necessarily not aggressive. I would say he's surrounded by Norris, Alonso. Norris is probably going to try and shoot up the road, even though Lando's had a mixture of starts in the past few races. Alonso, we know what he's like at the start, even though he made that error in Las Vegas. So I think Yuki, my mentality if I was Yuki, is he needs to try and move forward. Obviously to extend the gap and give him the best hope of finishing in front of his rivals, but at the same time you don't want to get into battles, and we see it numerous times over. You don't want to get into battles, unnecessary battles where you're wasting time defending. So we see that quite a lot in Formula One. So it's hard to predict because it all depends what goes on at the start. there's a clash in front of him, and he happens to then jump up and he's in second place, great. But if he sort of stays where he is, then potentially he just needs to try and hold his own, but not lose too much time in a battle.
There'll be a lot of very nervous team principals, members of the team watching on, and once the cars have gone, there's very little that they can actually do. They just have to sit and play their parts in pit stops or whatever, the tyre management, whatever they can do to help. So it's Verstappen, Leclerc from Piastri and Russell, Norris and Tsunoda. Norris starting in 5th place, and after last weekend where he crashed out, he'll be hoping for better this weekend.
Lando, really tough day for you yesterday. You're really hard on yourself, as you always are when you make a mistake. Everything resets for today and you've got a fast race car. You're smiling. Can you go after it today?
Yeah, I mean, I was smiling yesterday, so I can. I think the pace has been good all weekend. Obviously, the long runs is a different story, so there's a lot of questions we haven't been able to answer yet, and we're kind of going to have to find out on the fly. But the car's been good. I've been feeling good, so I think we can have a fun day.
It's so tight between Ferrari, Mercedes, even Red Bull feel like they're in the mix today. Is podium kind of the minimum that you can be expecting today?
It's our target for sure. Definitely it's our target. The question is just the race pace, which we don't even know our own, yet let alone what a Ferrari's like, or a Mercedes or a Red Bull. But everyone's been quick at different times. Mercedes has been quick all weekend, but so have we. So I think I'm confident that we can have some fun and do some overtaking and go forwards at least.
And that P4 in the championship, super important for McLaren, but you can also nab P4 the drivers. I think it's only 5 points in it.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, it's not something honestly you think of. You just think of doing the best you can, and if you end up ahead, then perfect. So it would be nice, especially to finish ahead of Carlos and Fernando. Would be a good bonus, and just to end the season well for myself, but also for the whole team's important. So that's our goal.
Great stuff. Good luck today, Lando. Thank you.
So we've seen some great races here in Abu Dhabi as a season closer, but 8 races, the last 8 races have been won from pole position. Not meaning to bring everyone down, Harry, but what are the chances of Max being beaten?
Pretty slim, Jenny, pretty slim, but you never say never. Of course, some remodifications to this track in 2021 to try and aid overtaking with the removal of a couple of chicanes in the first and final sector, the widening of some of the hairpins as well, particularly that left-hander at turn 9, slightly banked as well, supposed to aid overtaking. And last year, as race saw 60 overtakes on track, a mixture of DRS and normal on-track overtakes, which was above average. So never say never, but I am expecting Verstappen to pull away.
Can you predict, Alice, of anyone taking a big risk at the beginning of this race?
In terms of big risk, I would say that Sainz has really got to try and move forward.
He's had shoddy last weekend, hasn't he?
He's not had the best, has he?
Starting 16th.
Yeah, he needs to try and make his way forward. Yeah, as you said, starting 16th. He needs to clear those in front and try and be really within the top 10 if he can in, I would say, about the first 10 laps.
No pressure.
No pressure there, Sainz. But if he gets a good launch, we're still waiting to see what tyres he's starting on. He could be on the soft tyre, which will give him the best launch.
OK, it's time for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Harry Benjamin and Alice Powell will talk you through every moment of the action as we get ready for the last race of the season. A season that has cemented Max Verstappen's place in the history books.
Red Bull and Max Verstappen continue to break the records and make new records. Max Verstappen wins the Italian Grand Prix and makes it 10 consecutive F1 race wins.
Max, that is mighty. 10 races in a row, you're on your own, mate, now. That's history. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Well done. Listen to the wind blow, watch the sun rise.
Welcome to the 3-time world champion club, Max Verstappen.
Max, you are a 3-time world champion. That's unbelievable, mate. Absolutely unbelievable. And if you don't love me now, we'll never love me again. I can still hear you saying you would never break the chain.
It's Max Verstappen, the Dutchman, the champion, who takes the checkered flag and wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
Through the final corner comes Max Verstappen for the 18th time in 21 races.
then for 2023, let's run you through the grid. It is Max Verstappen, our champion, on pole position. He shares the front row with the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren is third in front of the Mercedes of George Russell, while the other McLaren of Lando Norris rounds out the top five. Yuki Tsunoda for AlphaTauri gets a career best start in sixth, in front of Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin in seventh. Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas is eighth. Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull is ninth, and Pierre Gasly in the Alpine rounds out the top 10. Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton is 11th in front of Esteban Ocon in the other Alpine is 12th. Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin 13th in front of Alex Albon in the Williams. Daniel Ricciardo for AlphaTauri is 15th in front of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari 16th. Kevin Magnussen for Haas is 17th. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo is 18th ahead of his teammate Zhou Guanyu, and Logan Sargent for Williams starts 20th and last. And after 21 races, the longest season in Formula One history so far comes to an end, with one more race still to run. And as the sun slowly begins to set, the lights come on one by one and illuminate this Yas Marina circuit.
For the last 3 years, and all of the efforts, advices to me, let's do this.
And Yuki Tsunoda on the radio there to his team, highlighting how this is the final race of the season and brings to an end a long tenure for his team principal Franz Tost, who bids farewell to AlphaTauri in Formula One when the checkered flag flies, with Yuki Tsunoda starting a brilliant sixth place for AlphaTauri, running a tribute to his boss on his helmet as well. So Tsunoda hoping for a good result for AlphaTauri. He could really elevate them in the battle further down in the Constructors for 7th. But we're approaching the end of the formation lap. Alice Powers alongside me to call all the action. How are you seeing this one play out on the early laps, Alice?
Well, as you said earlier, Harry, we don't get many safety cars around here, so I expect it to be fairly clean. Max, he's had great starts, hasn't he, in the past several races, so he'll be looking to keep that up. Charles Leclerc, it's a short run down to turn one. He needs to try and make sure he keeps Piastri behind, because essentially Oscar's got nothing to lose. You know, Ferrari is still in that battle, as we've already talked about, with Mercedes. But Piastri, he's going to be gunning. He's going to want to be moving forward as quickly and as best as he can. And watch out for George Russell too, because we've seen him produce some great starts in recent races as well. Final burnouts being done on the grid as they slide into their grid positions. Jenny Gow.
Everyone's starting on the medium tyres, apart from Stroll in 13th, Sainz in 16th and Bottas in 18th. They all start on the hard tyre.
Okay, so a mixture of strategies further down in the field. We're expecting the best strategy really to be a one-stop, starting on the medium, moving on to the hard compounder tyre around about lap 20. We'll see how it all unfolds after 58 laps. The final race of the year is about to get going. Verstappen's on pole. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing for the final time in 2023. And it's a bit of a steady start for Verstappen. Leclerc's going to have the inside line. Can he try it down the inside? No, he can't. Verstappen sweeps round and regains the lead. Verstappen leads out of turn one. Further back, Perez and Russell are going toe-to-toe. Hamilton as well, finding his way up from 11th on the grid. But after the first couple of corners, it's Verstappen, Leclerc and Piastri, the top three. Norris has made a gain as well, up into fourth as it concertinas up through the left-hander of turn 5 as they now put their foot to the floor and race down towards turn number 6. A 1.2 kilometre straight. Sparks fly. Leclerc's coming for the lead on the inside into the braking stone of Verstappen. They get oh so close. Is there contact? Verstappen holds firm and emerges still in the lead. Leclerc tried it, couldn't quite make it work. Will he get a good run out of turn 7 and try and get into the slipstream of the Red Bull? Verstappen moves to the inside as they approach the left-hander of turn 9. Leclerc can't find a way through, but Leclerc looking racy out there. Verstappen looking slightly on the back foot. Yeah, he is. A fantastic chance there for Charles Leclerc into turn 1, and then of course down into 6. That long run down the straight really used the benefit of the toe, but this has brought the McLarens into play. A great start by Lando Norris, who jumped up ahead of George Russell and Oscar Piastri. They are all, we've got a fight now. It's a 5-way fight currently for the lead here,
Harry.
This is absolutely fantastic as we cross the line to start lap 2 of 58. Verstappen leads Leclerc, Piastri, Norris, Russell the top 5, Tsunoda managing to hold firm in 6th for AlphaTauri in front of Alonso, Gasly, Hamilton, Perez, the top 10, Ocon, Stroll, Hülkenberg, Sainz up to 14th in front of Ricciardo, Bottas is 16th, Albon, Joe, Magnussen and Sargent, the 20 drivers all still in this pack who made it cleanly and safely through lap 1 of the opening stages. The two McLarens very close together now as we make the run down towards turn 6 once more. Lando Norris in the slipstream of its rookie teammate Oscar Piastri. Does Norris have a little look down the inside as they get to the braking zone of turn 6? He's not close enough at this stage, but Norris, who perhaps threw away a chance at getting a front row start for this race in qualifying yesterday, keen to make amends, and in their battle with Aston Martin for 4th in the Constructors, well, they're currently winning that one as it stands. But halfway through lap 2, what was a very close fight between Verstappen and Leclerc. Leclerc has now fallen back to nearly 1.5 seconds as Piastri is all over the back of the Monegasque.
Yeah, Leclerc really had a bad first sector on this lap, so that has allowed the McLarens to close even more. Lando Norris had a little look down the inside into turn 6. I'll expect he'll probably be on the radio soon saying, come on, I feel like I'm quicker. Tried to spook his teammate, but the Formula 2 champion from 2021 was very wise to that, held his line, but he is now all over the back of Charles Leclerc. But Charles has just had a fairly decent last sector, but the first and the middle sector of that last lap was not great for the Ferrari driver.
Disaster of a first lap for the likes of Nico Hülkenberg. Started in 8th. It was his 8th Q3 appearance of the season. He's fallen all the way down to 14th with the likes of Gasly, Hamilton and Perez all starting around the top 10 being promoted up. Gasly is 8th, Hamilton 9th and Perez at the moment rounding out the top 10. Hamilton getting the better of Perez in the opening laps as they make their run down once again towards turn 6. Late on the break, Charles Leclerc has managed to catch back up to the rear end of Max Verstappen. Meanwhile, Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez down the inside of Lewis Hamilton at the end of turn 6 into the braking zone, feeds it through the chicane on the exit of 7. Perez up into 9th, Hamilton into 10th. Can Hamilton try and fight back here? DRS is enabled now. The drag reduction system, the rear wing on the rear of these cars slides open in the designated zones when you're within a second of the car in front. Hamilton can't utilise it on that occasion to get back in front of Perez. He holds the position as we are now getting a look at the start of this Grand Prix once again. And Leclerc, Alice, had a better start than Verstappen.
He did, and I'm surprised he didn't try a bit more. He was obviously trying very hard, but stuck it there on the inside because Max gave him plenty of racing room, but he thought better of it, and then that left him a little bit vulnerable heading down into 5 of the Ferraris. But then he got such a great drive out of 5. Div Charles Leclerc seemed much more comfortable on these tyres on this opening lap, and then really charged up, made the benefit of the toe, charging up to the back of Max Verstappen, who again gave him room on the inside. I did think, here is Max going to cut the corner. We saw that happen a couple of times in the Formula 2 race earlier on today, but he didn't, and it was a great, respectful racing from those two drivers.
This is the sound of Sergio Perez in his Red Bull, making his start from 11th. He had a decent start, made his way to the inside of turn 1 and forced Hamilton out onto the exit.
Lewis went out in turn 1. Copy.
Yeah, so Lewis came steaming into turn 1, then suddenly appeared on the right-hand side of Perez's view and cut in front of the Mexican. Perez now back in front of Hamilton. They're in 9th and 10th, but it did get very tight going into turn 1. It was a wonderful start, and that's the sound you're hearing. Sublime gear changes from Lando Norris, getting up to 4th gear before immediately downshifting into turn 1, side by side with the Mercedes of George Russell to his inside, 2 by 2 as they went through turn 2. Brave stuff from Norris.
Yeah, very brave stuff, and that is such a great feeling when you get the clutch release just right and you feel the grip of the tyres and you launch off the grid nicely. As again, a replay of him now sailing past his teammate down the straight, and fastest lap for Lando Norris as well.
And speaking of Norris, he has now got in front of his teammate Piastri. Norris up into third and chasing down Leclerc in the Ferrari in second. So on lap 5 of 58 of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the last one of a long 2023 season, Verstappen leads by 1.4 seconds. Leclerc in second, Norris third, Piastri and Russell the top 5, Tsunoda, Alonso, Gasly, Perez and Hamilton the top 10, Ocon, Stroll, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Ricciardo the top 15, Bottas, Zhou, Albon, Magnussen and Sargent the 20 drivers, all 20 cars still in this race, having had a fairly clean opening lap. Got a bit tight in places, but now they're just starting to get in the flow, get in the rhythm. And right now, Alice, what's it all about? Is it about trying to make up as much time as you can, or are we now getting into nursing tyre situation?
Yeah, you're into nursing tyres. It's likely that it's a one-stop strategy. Pretty much everybody on the field, on the grid, has got at least 2 sets of hard tyres. It's only the Alfa Romeos that only have 1 set of hard tyres. The Aston Martins, they've got 2 sets of used hard tyres. They've bedded those in like they usually do in free practice 3, but trying to also keep within DRS as well, because we do see some DRS trains form often, and I feel like we're possibly going to get one now with Lando Norris. He's just 9/10 of a second behind Charles Leclerc, then Piastri's a further 7/10 back, then 6/10 Russell, 7/10 to Tsunoda, and then it sort of stays the same at 7/10. And obviously when you're going into turn 5, that is the first detection zone on the lap, which then gives you DRS down that long 1.2 kilometre straight.
Absolutely. Well, certainly there's tons of strategy on the cusp of that 1 and 2 stopper. It depends how long you can make these tyres last and where you're catching the traffic. And speaking of pit stops, first pit stop happening. It's an early call for Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, who's quickly in. It's a 3.5 second stop and then is released by his Haas mechanics. He's changed onto the hard compound of tyre, so he's back out there and getting into a little bit of a skirmish before he came into the pits with Logan Sargent coming into the right-hand turn 12, so getting quite close between the Williams and the Haas. Jenny?
Yeah, looking at the pit stops, we're expecting the pit window, because they've all started on either the medium or hard, to open around lap 20, so Kevin Magnussen coming in early for Haas and getting onto those hard tyres. We saw him lock up. I'm just wondering, could he get to the end? He'd have to nurse them.
He's going to have to really nurse them. I expect he's going to have to stop again, but
they're going to pray for a safety car, surely.
Yeah, he had a big lock-up though, going into turn 12, and once you get a flat spot, it can really blister the tyre, and then you start to find that spot. Every time you get into that braking zone, you will find that flat spot, and then it eventually gets worse and worse. So potentially that's what has happened there for Magnussen.
Carlos Sainz, further down the field, started in 16th place after a bit of a disaster qualifying, just lacked pace. He was saying about he had traffic on his lap. He started 16th, he's worked his way up into 13th spot. He's on the hard compound tyre. His teammate Leclerc is in second on the medium, currently fending off the 2 McLarens, and then comes Russell in the Mercedes. Ferrari really needs Sainz to get a hurry on here and try and break into the top 10, because right now, as it stands, if it ended like this, actually no, the other way around, Ferrari would clinch the Constructors, wouldn't they? They would just about clinch ahead of Mercedes. So Mercedes actually need Hamilton to try and make up some more moves. Hamilton's down in 10th.
Yeah, as things stand, as you say, Mercedes will be on 403 points and Ferrari will be on 406 points. So there's leapfrog Mercedes to second spot.
Move being done though, sorry Jenny. Russell, speak of that battle in the Constructors. Russell is trying to make up positions and get in front of Piastri, round side by side almost through the left-hander, slightly banked turn 9. Piastri holds firm in that McLaren into the braking zone. Russell can't slide it down the inside. He has to hold for the time being in 5th spot. Russell started 4th.
Possible tear off in one of the front ducts. We are checking. We may have to take some actions. I'll keep you posted. So
that's Daniel. Daniel Ricciardo being told of a possible tear off in one of his ducts. What kind of damage could that cause, Alice?
So that will be the brake ducts, and the brake ducts are there to cool those front brakes. A tear off is basically a very thin strip that goes across the visor of of the driver's helmet, and Ricciardo has now come into the pit. So and basically that will then stop the airflow going into the duct. So that's hugely unlucky for Ricciardo, because, like I said, it's only a thin strip that goes across the visor of the drivers, that they tear it off and you release it out the side of the car. You know, if you have fly spatters, oil or dirt on your tear off, that's when you would take it off. So unlucky from Ricciardo, but he's on pit exit now.
Lap 8 of 58 here in Yas Marina. Verstappen leads 1.6 seconds. Leclerc in second, under pressure from Norris in the McLaren in third. Then a bit of a gap to Piastri in the other McLaren, who's under pressure from Russell in the Mercedes in fifth, coming through the second DRS zone now as they then hit the brakes into the left-hander of turn 9 once again. Last time around, Russell was able to go around the outside of Piastri. He's not close enough on this occasion. They hold firm in fourth and fifth. Tsunoda is in sixth, Alonso seventh, Gasly eighth, Perez ninth, and Hamilton the top 10. So Perez and Hamilton not really making huge inroads from where they started. Perez started in 9th, Hamilton started in 11th, and in terms of that constructors fight, Mercedes really need Hamilton to try and make up a few more positions here to try and maximise their scoring opportunity. Ferrari would take second in the constructors if it ended like this. Also, we're watching that battle for 7th in the constructors as well between AlphaTauri and Williams, and right now, if it ended as it stood now without Tsunoda in 6th, AlphaTauri would nick 7th from Williams. So there is so much to play for in this race. Yes, the championship has been decided, but there is still a lot at stake for all of these teams that make up the remainder of the grid. Lap 9 of 58.
Yeah, there's not many drivers on this grid that were able to do the long runs during free practice 2, because of obviously the delays we had with Sainz going into the wall, as Sergio Perez now has a little look down the inside of one of the Alpines. That's Pierre Gasly, and that was very close, wasn't it, Harry, going into turn 6?
Sparks flying from the underside of the Alpine and the Red Bull. Perez stays behind while they battle. Russell and Piastri continue to go side by side through the left-hander of turn 9, but Piastri once again is able to place that McLaren in all the right positions, and Russell has to stick behind him. Russell is going to be getting frustrated now. He's stuck behind Piastri in the McLaren, who has got a bit of a gap to his teammate in front, just half a second between Russell and Piastri as they come towards the end of lap number 9 and start lap 10. So Russell getting a bit frustrated now, I think, behind Piastri.
Yeah, it's a good job from Piastri, actually, because he clearly knows we've got back-to-back DRS zones here. So we've got one on the run down to turn 6 and 7, which is that nifty little chicane, and then we've got another run down the straight into turn 9. And he's setting his exit up very nicely, is Piastri. He's forcing George to the outside, and then Oscar's clearly staying to the inside, but he's just rolling off that brake, so sending the cars to the middle of the road and then making George go wide. And the exit curb on the exit of turn 9 is brutal, so if you run over that, there's a good chance, we saw it actually happen in the Formula 2 race, of a car sort of flying up in the air. So George, I'm sure, will be aware of that as well, as is Oscar. So some good driving from Oscar.
Perez getting close to Gasly once again into the braking zone of turn 6. This the battle for 8th, but Perez not far enough along on that occasion. Here we go again into the left-hander of turn 9 at the end of the DRS zone. Russell slams on the brakes, tries it around the outside of Piastri, but he can't get it done. Piastri holds on to 4th once more. Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Piastri and Russell the top 5. Tsunoda, Alonso, Gasly, Perez, Hamilton the top 10. Ocon, Stroll, Sainz in 13th. It's a curious decision from Ferrari. We were kind of talking beforehand about what the possibilities were when it came to tyre strategy. Sainz started on the hard. He has made up positions, but he's kind of stuck now behind Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Why wouldn't they? Could they have gone and gambled maybe on a soft tyre just to get that better purchase off the line?
Yeah, I can't quite work that one out. It is a bit bizarre. When Leclerc was one of the drivers that managed to do, you can call it a long run. He only did 5 laps, but that's what they classed as a longer run for that very shortened free practice 2 session. He was the only one to run on the soft tyre for that run.
This is good, Oscar. Defending well, tyre management looks good.
So that's Piastri's engineer saying he's doing a good job, but he's going to be under pressure now heading into turn 6 as as well is Gasly, further in the background from Perez. But this is going to be tougher now, Harry, because George Russell is ever close. He's closer than he ever has been before.
DRS open for Russell, who moves to the outside. A little bit of a lock-up as well going into the last chicane for Piastri. Russell's made the move into the braking zone. The DRS slams shut as Russell slams on the brakes into the left-hander of turn 9. Russell emerges ahead of Piastri. The Mercedes up into 4th, the McLaren down into 5th. Russell then biding his time over the course of the last few laps, finally making that move stick, and he lined it up all the way from the start of that lap, really, initially, trying and eventually getting alongside and through in the straights with a bit of DRS help too.
Yeah, he lined that up really nicely, did George, and sadly Oscar's engineer spoke a little bit too soon, and he's now immediately actually under pressure from Yuki Tsunoda, who's 4/10 behind him going across the line. So a great job there from Yuki. But just quickly back on the as we're going to hear from Verstappen.
Right front is slowly getting a bit hurt.
Okay, understood.
So that's Max informing his Red Bull team that his front tyre is just starting to get a little bit damaged, a little bit warm there. So that's something to keep an eye on, but we have seen them say that before, and their pace has still been very good. But Leclerc was the only one to do an essential sort of long run, and that was on the soft tyre. So maybe that bit of data that they got from the soft tyre run that Leclerc did in free practice 2.
Move further back, Alice. Sorry, that's Gasly and Perez once again going toe-to-toe. It was a violent move out of the toe for Perez, who slung his Red Bull to the right-hand side, the outside, coming into turn 6. Couldn't get the move done through the chicane, but now Perez will get the DRS around the outside of the Alpine, and just like Russell did to Piastri as they went into the left-hander of turn 9, Perez gets through on Gasly. Perez 8th, Gasly 9th.
Yeah, Gasly's now in the clutches of Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton's also under pressure from the other Alpine driver, Esteban Ocon, as the fans clap in the grandstand. The Mexican flag is being waved, but Tsunoda, he's even closer now to the back of Piastri. So at the moment, wherever we look, or bar the front 4, there's battles all the way down the field.
Tsunoda doing his best to try and clinch 7th in the Constructors for AlphaTauri. He's all over the back of Piastri. Alonso comes into the pits then. The Aston Martin crew are waiting for him. He comes in and the crew quickly get to work. They remove the medium compound tyre and quickly, within 3 seconds, put on a set of the hard compound tyre and send Alonso on his way. He should come out down in 18th, just in front of Daniel Ricciardo. Kevin Magnussen, who was our earliest stopper, down in 20th and last for his Haas team. Up front, though, Verstappen just appears to be managing his pace. He's sitting around about 1.3, 1.6 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who is 2nd. Lando Norris in the Mercedes is another couple of seconds behind them. Russell now up into 4th. Piastri is the man at risk here in 5th. Half a second between himself and Yuki Tsunoda in 6th. Then there's a bit of a gap to Sergio Perez in 7th. Gasly, having just lost 7th to Perez, is under pressure once more from Hamilton in 8th. Ocon rounds out the top 10. Jenny.
It'll be really interesting to see the result of Alonso coming into pit relatively early for him. He's gone onto the hard tyres, and I just wonder how powerful the undercut could be out there.
Well, we will wait and see. You're on lap 13 of 58. It could well be. And Aston Martin want to try everything they can to elevate their drivers. And has that meant McLaren have been forced into pitting Piastri in response? Possibly. I mean, that's a big undercut if they want to try that. But Piastri comes into the pits then. He was losing time. Tsunoda skates through. So does Perez. Gasly all go through. Little bit slow on the rear right for Piastri, but it's still a decent enough pit stop. 2.7 seconds as Piastri gets sent on his way and has been swapped out his old tyres for a set of the hard compound tyre, and he will emerge coming onto the pit lane exit through turn 2, just in front of the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. So he has managed to make that work. It was a call that McLaren were forced to make to try and fend off the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. These two teams embroiled in a fight for 4th in the Constructors. McLaren just edging it as it currently stands, but Piastri will be on cold tyres. Alonso has the benefit of an extra lap and the DRS as he has a look down the inside into turn 6 at the end of the first long straight. Can't find a way through on that occasion. Keeps it nice and tight through the chicane. Lines it up to get the second dose of DRS as McLaren then say to the other to Lando Norris to come into the pits at the end of this lap. Can Alonso try and find a way round the outside into the left-hander of turn 9? No, Piastri knows where to place his car in that corner. Alonso stays behind Piastri for the time being. Now we're getting into more pit stops. Russell, Norris expected in at the end of this lap.
Yeah, so the flurry, the pit lane is fairly busy at the moment as Alonso still all over the back. As in is Lando Norris. Oh, and it's a slow stop. It's
rear
the rear, yeah. And is he going to be released? Yeah, Russell's got through. So that is a slow stop, 5.1 seconds there from Lando Norris's McLaren crew, and then 2.9 for the Mercedes of George Russell. So big disappointment for the McLaren crew there as the battle still rages here, look, between Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri.
And that has highlighted just how strong the undercut can be around this track as well, with Alonso managing to make that work. So, well done, Jenny. You called that one earlier. Lap 15 of 58 then, and in the pits, a slow stop for Lando Norris has seen him fall behind George Russell. Verstappen leads Leclerc, leads Tsunoda now the top three, but pit stops in action, so we'll wait to see how it all unfolds. Right now, Lewis Hamilton, currently in 6th place, is battling once again with the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Hamilton at the advantage of DRS once again, going into the left-hander of turn 9. Isn't close enough to make the move on the Alpine, but Gasly having to look in his mirrors, left, right and centre. Can Hamilton dive down the inside? No, here's what he has to say.
I've just damaged my front wing. He looks up ahead of me.
Do you know what? Just as there's the camera put to that shot, I did think, hang on a second, it looks like Hamilton's extremely close to the rear end of Pierre Gasly. And let's have a little look now. He goes into, so Gasly locks up, and then Lewis sort of rolls out the brake and just didn't anticipate Gasly sort of stopping in the middle of the corner there to basically box Hamilton in. So Hamilton didn't get the run on him, as we're going to hear from Gasly.
Just push me, hit me.
I mean, yeah, if the stewards do anything about that, then I'll be really, really surprised. Racing incident, but Lewis Hamilton is out of the pits and he has jumped one of the Alpines, trying to see which one it is that's boxed. So it's Esteban Ocon, so he hasn't made the jump, but it is Esteban and Lewis that have come into the pits, and Gasly is still on track.
Yeah, further back as well, Hülkenberg in the Haas has pitted, so has Joe in the Alfa Romeo, and Logan Sargent is just coming out of the pits at the moment. Lap 16, Verstappen, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Perez, Gasly the top 5, Stroll, Sainz, Bottas, Albon, Russell the top 10, and this is the sound of the Mercedes of George Russell, who had a good pit stop, managed to jump Lando Norris thanks to his pit crew, and is now making the move down the inside of the Williams of Alex Albon to get himself up into 9th on the road. But of course Albon yet to stop. Jenny.
Yeah, looking at the long run data, as you said, they didn't really do much as Max Verstappen pits.
Verstappen's in. Let's see how his pit stop goes. The crew get to work. It's a little bit slow on the front right, but it doesn't cost him too much time. 2.9 seconds, and he's out of that stop. Meanwhile, on track, Hamilton and Ocon getting oh so close. Sparks flying with the left wing end plate of Hamilton slightly flapping.
Yeah, definitely lost some front end. Front was okay?
Yep, we're looking at it. We don't think there's too much damage.
So Hamilton there complaining about the damage to his front wing, but it's not deterring him from getting absolutely stuck into the action with Ocon. So that has meant Hamilton is in 14th, Ocon in 15th. Of course, they've pitted, and Verstappen has emerged from the pit lane in 7th. Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at all these early pit stops, because you haven't had the long run data, this looks like it's turning into more of a 2-stop race. So we'll watch and see how things develop.
And we're just getting another look at the painfully slow pit stop for Lando Norris, Alice, in the McLaren.
Yeah, it was painful to watch there for them. But just going back to Lewis Hamilton's front wing, he has got damage on the front left end plate of that front wing. So it's at an angle that it certainly shouldn't be at. It's still intact on the car at the moment, and people might be saying, well, hang on a second, Max Verstappen lost his front right end plate in Vegas, but of course this is a much higher downforce track, and now Lewis is under immense pressure heading into turn 9. Esteban Ocon has a little look on the outside. He also then jinks to the left to have a look on the inside as well with the aid of DRS. Doesn't make it work, but Charles Leclerc is in the pit lane. Not a bad stop, 2.8, could have been a little bit better as Perez springs into the pits as well now.
Yeah, and the Red Bull mechanics get to work straight away, and it's a nice quick stop for Sergio Perez, 2.4 seconds, 4/10 quicker than Leclerc was. So we're getting a real insightful look here into what the various strategies might be. Right now, Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri leads this race. What a parting gift for Franz Tost, the team principal, to be enjoying, seeing his car leading this race in Formula One. Stroll is second, Sainz third, pit stops still to play out here. Verstappen is net lead, I suppose, in fourth, then Leclerc in second. So these pit stops happened earlier than we expected, so that alludes us into thinking it might well be a two-stop strategy. This is the sound of Russell just making his way down the inside of Valtteri Bottas at the end of the 1.2 kilometre straight that feeds you to the turn 6 and 7 chicane as he tries to get onto the back of the Ferrari of Leclerc. There's actually not a lot separating these two, so Leclerc coming under a little bit of pressure now from Russell in the Mercedes. Bottas yet to pit in his Alfa Romeo, going as long as he can on that hard compound tyre, but everybody at the moment then on the hard compound tyre except for Tsunoda, who is on the medium compound tyre and yet to pit. The top three in this race have yet to pit. So Verstappen with a bit of a gap over Leclerc for fourth and fifth as it currently stands. Russell closing in on Leclerc, Bottas seventh. Norris is now in eighth in front of Piastri and Alonso at the top 10.
Yeah, Gasly's just made a nice move down the inside, coming through the traffic there, but Max Verstappen's got now a comfortable lead. But just as I say that, he's got to try and negotiate the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, who is yet to pit, but I think Sainz will be fairly vulnerable on the older hard tyre compared to Max's fresher tyre, and they're on now the back straight, so heading out of 5 to 6, and Max of course will have the aid of DRS.
Right onto the back in the tow, plus the DRS onto Sainz's Ferrari. Sainz doesn't fight that too hard. They're on very, very different strategies as Verstappen into the braking zone, gets in front of the Ferrari of Sainz to make the move for third on the road. Sainz down to fourth. Jenny. Oh, hang on, Jenny.
I don't get how you can undercut me with the other car. The leading car, I seriously don't understand. You'll have to explain me, because...
So Esteban is 4.1 ahead, so we'll just focus on tire management. Still a long way to go, we can make this work.
And that's Pierre Gasly on the radio there to his team, not happy that he's been undercut by his teammate Esteban Ocon. And of course, that's not the first time Pierre Gasly hasn't been particularly happy with a team radio call at Alpine. They're currently in 14th and 15th. Jenny.
I was watching his pit stop actually before this interchange happened, and it took 3.5 seconds, so that's a quite lengthy pit stop. It's only a matter of seconds, but that is enough milliseconds to make a difference. And can I just say, I know you've said it already, but Yuki Tsunoda, can we all just stand up and give him a round of applause? This is a delightful parting gift to Franz Tost. He started sixth. He hasn't come into pit yet, but he is leading this race, and what a joy it is to see someone totally different leading a race.
4.7 seconds the gap he has over Stroll, and those two yet to pit, so going as long as they can. I wonder if they are going to try and stick it out for as long as possible, going for a one-stop, maybe hoping for a safety car interjection. We'll see how that one pans out. AlphaTauri in desperate need of all the points they can get in their battle for 7th in the Constructors with Williams. Right now, both Williams, Albon and Sargent, 19th and 20th, plumb last. So it's going AlphaTauri's way at the moment, but it's only lap 20 of 58 of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final race of the 2023 Formula One season. There is still a lot to play for. This is the sound of Fernando Alonso making his way down the inside at turn 9 on Valtteri Bottas. Bottas, another of the drivers yet to pit in his Alfa Romeo, so didn't make that too hard for Alonso, who now sets his sights once again on Piastri in the McLaren, who is in front of him. About 6.5 tenths the gap between Piastri and Alonso. Tsunoda, Stroll, Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc, the top 5. Russell, Norris, Piastri, Alonso, Bottas, the top 10. Perez, 11th. Ricciardo, Hamilton, Ocon, Gasly, the top 15. Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Joe, Albon and Sargent the top 20. And Sergio Perez comes across the line to set the fastest lap, but he won't get a point for it just yet because he's not in the top 10, but he's managed to get into the 1:29.1s. The two Ferraris very close on track together, differing strategies. Leclerc behind Sainz, Leclerc already with a stop to his name.
And Sainz will let you by.
Well, that was, I expected that because he let Verstappen quite easily by as well, but Leclerc has the aid of DRS to breeze on past. The gap stretched ever so slightly compared to Leclerc and Verstappen, but Max now is still making his way past the traffic. See no further action between that instant of Lewis Hamilton and Pierre Gasly, which is what I expected, but Max Verstappen now sails on past Lance Stroll. Nice easy move there going down into turn 9.
Yeah, 3.7 seconds back Verstappen is from the leader of this race, which is Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri, yet to pit, started 6th though, so there is pace in that AlphaTauri as he looks to stay out for another lap. Does Tsunoda? They're not in a rush to pit the Japanese racer. Less than 3.5 seconds the gap to Verstappen in the Red Bull, and AlphaTauri, the team that are set to change their name into next year. We're yet to confirm what that will be, but a very race full of finals for AlphaTauri, as we've mentioned, with the name and their team principal, Franz Tost. So, Norris and Piastri separated by a second or so in 7th and 8th at the moment. Alonso behind, just over 8.5 tenths. Perez now up into the top 10 and trying to close in on the fight. Russell has now closed right up to the back of Sainz, and again, another easy move for Russell on Sainz with the aid of DRS down the straight towards turn 6, and Russell is already ahead as they enter into the 6 and 7 chicane. Russell in 5th now, Sainz 6th, but Norris is right there as well. And a bit of action in the mid-pack, getting a little bit tight between Bottas, Ricciardo and Hamilton. Ricciardo in 11th, Bottas 12th.
Lewis, you've been second quickest car last lap. You're quick.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Toto Wolff on the radio giving Lewis Hamilton a little bit of encouragement as side-by-side Bottas screams round the outside of Ricciardo into the left-hander of turn 9, but Bottas can't try and make a way through. Once again, Ricciardo holds on, but Bottas now having to look at his mirrors because his former teammate is right behind him with his former team, Mercedes. Hamilton having to just bide his time behind Bottas, being told he's got the second quickest car as Lance Stroll comes into the pits. And Tsunoda, race leader, into the pits. Yuki Tsunoda finally calls it a day and he heads into the pits. Jenny.
Yes, pit stop onto the hard tyres, as you would predict, 2.5 seconds. So the two people that were trying to hang out for the longest, I think Bottas is still to pit as well. So he's the only one out there on his original hard tyres at the moment, trying to make it work. And just doing a good job out there of trying to hold on. There's a lot of marbling on the racetrack as well.
Yeah, Sainz is yet to pit as well. He's under pressure from Lando Norris, and once again down the back straight, Sainz is victim to those on the fresher tyre coming through, and with the aid of DRS as Lando Norris sails on past. But just back to that message from Toto to Lewis, you'll often find that when Lewis is getting a little bit flustered and he's a bit down, they spring Toto, or Toto steps up to give Lewis an arm round the shoulder and sort of say, "You're quick, mate, come on, keep going, don't give up."
You know, when Wolff comes on the radio, there's a little bit of encouragement to be had. Tsunoda came out of the pits in 12th, and he's just made the move up into 11th in front of Valtteri Bottas. So Tsunoda back again on the march to try and get points for AlphaTauri. His teammate is now being promoted up into 9th spot. Stroll, who also pitted with Tsunoda, came out in 14th behind Ocon and ahead of Gasly. So he's splitting the Alpines as it currently stands. But I would expect then Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri and the likes of Stroll to try and avoid at all costs coming in again for the rest of this race. I would presume that's what they're trying to do, as Sainz finally comes into the pits as well on lap 24. Jenny.
I think that's going to be highly unlikely, because I've just been watching Magnussen. He pitted on lap 6 because of damage, and he went into the hard tyre. He only made it to lap 23 before changing again and going back onto another hard tyre. So the tyres aren't lasting out there as long as they would hope they would.
So graining issues and tyre management once again rearing their head in Formula One. Verstappen leads then, lap 24. He's 4.8 seconds clear from Leclerc. Russell, Norris and Piastri the top 5. As this is the sound of Esteban Ocon making the move down the straight in front of Valtteri Bottas to get himself up into 11th. Alonso is 6th, Perez is 7th, Ricciardo 8th, Hamilton 9th and Tsunoda already up into the points once again in the top 10. Ocon 11th, Bottas 12th, Stroll, Gasly, Hulkenberg the top 15. Sainz fed out of the pits in 16th position in front of Zhou, Albon and Sargent 18th and 19th, and Magnussen down in 20th and last. So it's been such a fascinating weekend. I almost feel like no one quite knows exactly how it's going to play out. We've been limited with the long-run data from the limited FP2 session, which is the only representative one. Nobody really knows quite what they've got underneath them, I think.
I think that's the best way, isn't it? When they can at least one of the practice sessions, it always leads for something slightly more interesting. The unknowns can potentially come in and fight people. And that's what we like.
It certainly can. Nice battle developing between the other AlphaTauri, who we haven't actually spoken much about. Daniel Ricciardo has made his way up into 8th, and he's trying to hold on to that position. Lewis Hamilton, though, is right behind him, 6/10 of a second, splitting those two in that battle. And the battle ahead of them is Perez v Alonso. Perez now sliding down the inside at the end of the straight, going into turns 6 and 7. Perez in the Red Bull gets in front of Alonso. 6th for Perez, 7th for Alonso.
As it stands at the moment, the battle in the Constructors' Championship for second place, it would be Mercedes who gets second place and jump Ferrari. So there's a difference. It's changing all the time, but the difference is just grown.
Losing while we're slow.
Okay, Pierre, so we did pick up some damage with that contact with Hamilton, but we are closing on the cars in front.
Frustration once again rearing its head for Pierre Gasly, who is just wondering why he's so slow. 2 races in a row, he is tumbling down the order and finds himself behind his teammates. Gasly not happy in the cockpit of that Alpine. While we were chatting, Hamilton managed to get in front of Daniel Ricciardo for 8th, so he's now trying to close up to the back of Alonso. Ricciardo now has his teammate Yuki Tsunoda for company. Tsunoda pitting much later than Ricciardo. Everybody out there on the hards, but some with fresher rubber than others. Verstappen leads. The sun has set now, and the lights around this track, over 4,500 used to light up the Yas Marina circuit. 5.28 kilometres, 16 turns, 6 to the left and 10 to the right, illuminated in full glow with 20 Formula One race cars completing their final laps of the longest season ever in Formula One history. Verstappen leads over 5 seconds the gap. Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at the rest of the constructors, that actually would say exactly the same. There'd be no change there. And if I look at the drivers as it stands, we know this isn't going to be the finishing order. It never is. But Norris would go up to 4th at the moment with 207 points, just 1 point ahead of Alonso.
Well, there you go. So still things to play for, but lap 26, you really don't know how it's going to end up at the end of 58 laps. The marina around this circuit absolutely in full glow. The boat party's in action.
Lewis, fastest car on track now.
That's from Toto Wolff saying Lewis is the fastest car on the track at the moment. His last lap was a 1:29.370. I don't know if that's quite true
yeah,
from Toto Wolff.
Max Verstappen is slightly faster, so is Norris.
Yeah,
yeah.
A bit of twisting of the truth to give him some encouragement, perhaps.
And now Lance Stroll sets fastest lap with 28.8.
Maybe that message was delayed.
Quite possibly.
A long
they normally
time.
are.
I'm really curious about why Toto, you've said it before, why he feels the need to intervene. He only comes on the radio in certain situations. I know a lot is up for grabs in this Constructors' Championship, and he's trying to encourage Hamilton, but just, to me, seems slightly out of place.
Yeah, I agree. We don't usually hear him spring up, and it's only when one of the drivers needs some real encouragement, their spirits lifting. So maybe Hamilton's feeling a little bit down, or Toto thinking, it's the end of the season, why not? I'll pop on the radio, but under pressure now, is Oscar Piastri. He has got Sergio Perez in the Red Bull all over the back as he goes through turn 9. So Perez has had a decent run here, hasn't he, Harry? He's made up some good places, and he looks to be flying along, and his pace as well, okay, albeit he's stuck behind traffic, he's certainly faster than Piastri in front, and just a little bit slower than Russell and Norris a little bit further up the road.
Yeah, he started down in 9th, and the man who was claimed second place in the Drivers' Championship makes the move to get in front, or trying to get in front of Oscar Piastri. There has been a move at AlphaTauri. Ricciardo getting out of the way to let his teammate through. Tsunoda now up into 9th, but that was very much swap positions, please. And Tsunoda making his way through. Ricciardo rounding out the top 10. Stroll, as you mentioned, has got the fastest lap at the moment in that Aston Martin. He's just outside the points, though, so he won't get the point for it. Verstappen still leads, just under 6 seconds the gap between himself and Charles Leclerc. Russell, Norris, Piastri the top 5. Piastri under pressure, though, from Perez, who dives down the inside at the end of the straight into the left-hander of turn 6, then out through the right-hander of 7 on the gas. Full traction for Perez. He gets in front, but Piastri will now get the aid of the DRS, tucks in behind of the Red Bull. Perez moves left, then moves right before moving to the middle of the road to get onto the brakes into the left-hander. Banked turn 9. The Mexican holds the position, and Perez gets through up into 5th. Piastri down to 6th. Alonso, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Ricciardo the top 10.
Just having a look at Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo. He's currently P14, and he is under attack at the moment from Carlos Sainz for that 14th place. But Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari managing to get around fairly easily, but Bottas is still on his original tyres, so proving that you can do 29 laps currently. And interesting to see Alfa Romeo just being brave, just trying something totally different to everyone else and seeing if it works. I mean, if a safety car would happen now, it would be interesting to see what happens, because there's a lot of people, I think, that would take the most of that, and everyone would come in.
Yeah, he is one of the slower cars on the track, I think, at the moment. But you're right, Ruth Buscombe, the chief strategist on the Alfa Romeo pit wall, does have a habit of just trying something with one of her cars. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the art of strategic calls. You're never quite sure how it's going to go, but Bottas still out there, having not pitted. But you have to say, though, he's behind Sainz, who has had a bit of a miserable race so far. Further up, though, going okay for Lance Stroll, who gets himself up into the points off the back of 2 fifth-place finishes in Formula 1, off the back of the last couple of Grand Prix. The Canadian makes his way into 10th place and dispatches Daniel Ricciardo down to 11th. So Stroll and Aston Martin on the move. His teammate is up in 7th at the moment, but that wouldn't affect the constructors' fight for 4th between themselves and McLaren, with the 2 McLarens in 4th and 6th as it currently stands. But Piastri will now have to start getting his elbows out a little bit more, because Alonso is only 1.8 seconds behind. And the last lap around, Alonso a 1:35 or 1:30 actually, and Oscar Piastri a 1:33. So Alonso a few tenths quicker on that last lap around, and trying to close the gap to Piastri to keep Aston Martin's fights for 4th in the Constructors alive. If it ended like this, though, it would go the way of McLaren.
Yeah, it would. Track temperatures continuing to drop. 32 degrees at the moment. As Lewis Hamilton, he's gone and found himself a little bit in no man's land at the moment. He's 3.2 seconds off Fernando Alonso. He's got a gap with Yuki Tsunoda, 2.2 seconds behind. But still hopefully going to be in high spirits, as actually with the laps that he's setting at the moment, he should in theory be on the back of Fernando Alonso in the next several laps.
Alice, you talk about the temperatures coming down. Obviously it's now dark out there. How much can the teams do about that? Can they set it up for this temperature, or would they set it up for the starting temperature?
Well, there's not much you can do after qualifying to the setups of the car due to Parc Fermé or the regulations as well. They have a set minimum tyre pressure that they have to follow with Pirelli, and Pirelli do come round and check the tyre pressures as well. So there's not a great deal that you can do. If you come into a pit stop, you can do small adjustments to the front wing. But naturally, that will, with the temperatures dropping, will help with the degradation of the tyres, and that's why probably we're seeing some of the drivers still setting sort of personal best for sectors, second sectors, third sectors. Max Verstappen, last lap he set a personal best in the first sector. So all the times are fairly consistent, but it is Max Verstappen out front, 6.8 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc now, who's opening up that gap. But just keeping an eye on the timing screen, it looks like Russell, he's a little bit up and down actually. Sometimes he's setting a similar place to Leclerc, and we think, here we go, he might close that gap down, and then he'll all of a sudden lose a little bit of pace. So Russell will obviously hope to try and find a little bit consistency there, Harry, because he might feel that he could close the gap to the Ferrari, unless of course Charles is just trying to eke out these tyres even further.
Yeah, last lap around though, Leclerc, 4/10 quicker than Russell there or thereabouts. So ebbing and flowing, the gap overall, as you mentioned, just over 2 seconds. The gap between Verstappen and Leclerc, almost 7 seconds. So Verstappen able to eke that one out for the time being. Further down, what battles are we watching and looking out for? Well, the battle continues between 6th and 7th place in the race between Piastri and Alonso. Alonso slowly chipping away a tenth or so each lap at Piastri, trying to make that move stick. Elsewhere, Ocon is right on the back within a second of Ricciardo for 11th and 12th. Sainz is in a bit of no man's land on his own. He's had a bit of a rough race, a rough weekend for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Started 16th, is only now in 14th after the stops, as Ricciardo comes into the pits. And speak of pits, a couple of laps ago, Valtteri Bottas finally called it a day on lap 30 and came in to get rid of his hard tyres, stuck on some medium tyres, and he's come out in 19th spot. Jenny.
Stroll in the Aston Martin, he pitted and has gone onto the hard tyres. He's one of only 2 drivers to do that strategy at the moment, so he'll have to come in and pit again. Sainz is the other one who's taken another hard and will have to come in to change their tyres onto either a soft or a medium. You have to use at least 2 compounds.
And this is the sound of Sainz up into 8th gear, down the 1.2 kilometre straight. The grandstand at the end of the straight awaits you, full of fans, before the Spaniard slams on the brakes, chucks that Ferrari into the left-hander of 6, then the right-hander of 7. There's a slight incline there. Tentatively apply the throttle before you eventually get to the slight left-hand kink of turn 8. The DRS zone awaits you. He won't get it. He's not, well, he was within a second actually of Gasly. He's managed to close up down that straight into the left-hander of turn 9, the banked corner, before it then gets very tricky into the right-hander of turn 12 as you're braking and turning, trying not to snatch a break. Sainz keeps it neat and tidy as he is 6/10 behind the Alpine of Pierre Gasly in 12th, and Gasly decides he's had enough, calls it a day and comes into the pits.
Yeah, he was struggling with damage, and he was quite vocal, wasn't he, on the radio several laps ago as why his teammate got the undercut. But he struggled in Vegas, didn't he, last time out with tyre degradation. As a new set of hard tyres goes on to the Alpine, but it's a slow stop. It's hard to see which rear tyre was the issue, so more of a disappointing day continues for Pierre Gasly. He's going to exit the pits now, down in 18th place.
I think it was right rear tyre for Gasly, 4.1 seconds. And I made it sound like he was coming into a tyre, so it wasn't. He was coming in for a pit stop. So feeds back out into turn 3. Gasly then coming out in 18th with Bottas and Magnussen, the only cars behind him in 19th and 20th. All 20 cars still in this race as Norris is told to box. That means to come into the pits, we're going to change your tyres. So Norris coming in from 4th in this race. He's got 2.7 seconds over Perez in 5th. So Norris then slams onto the pit limiter, comes into the pits. Jenny.
Yeah, let's see how this pit stop goes for him. He'll go into the McLaren pit box. They'll lift him up using those jacks, change his tyres. It's a new set of hard tyres, and he goes out 2.3 seconds. That's more like it.
Nicely done from Norris. Tsunoda skates through into 8th along with Hamilton, and a rather unique pit lane here in Abu Dhabi as the drivers get to the end of the pit lane and head downhill through the tunnel that drives under the track, and then the main pit lane exit feeds you out on the left-hand side of turn 2 as you then sweep round to the right-hand side through turn 3, and he has emerged, Lando Norris, just in front of the Alpine of Esteban Ocon in 10th, Ocon in 11th. Hulkenberg in the Haas, who started up in 8th spot, has tumbled down, which is a story we've unfortunately had to report on throughout the year for Haas. Good qualifyings for the German, but then the race pace isn't there. He's just come into the pits and has exited now, down in 18th spot. So another day to forget for Haas, who sit plumb last in the Constructors' Championship. Just a few points behind Alfa Romeo, but at the moment, none of those teams scoring points. Here's Russell.
We can make the one-stop work. That's reasonable.
We've got a long way to go. It's 24 to go into this lap.
So Russell wants to try it, and then a one-stop at least, and then he comes into the pits. So they call him in, and straight to work go the mechanics. Decent enough stop, but not massively quick. 3.1. I think overall this season Mercedes have been the 7th slowest pit crew in terms of stops, but Russell then feeding back out as he dives underneath turn 1 and will feed out into turn 2.
It's interesting listening to him at least acknowledging the team, saying, you know, I feel like it could work. But he's gone with team orders at that time and gone, OK, if you think it's best. But 24 laps, how hard is it on a track like this that the drivers all know so well to actually keep track of where you are in the race, how your race is unfolding?
It's here from Russell.
So this will be out-lap critical.
Should say he's just fed out in front of Norris, so it's very tight. Norris on warmer tyres with DRS as well at the end of the straight, closes up under braking. It's Stroll in 8th, Russell, Norris 9th and 10th. So this is quite crucial for Russell, as was pointed out on the team radio.
Yeah, you've got to try and stay focused on your own race, as Norris is looking quick on this set of hard tyre, fastest in the first and second sector out of everyone, which is why, of course, this outlap is critical from George Russell as Charles Leclerc now gets the call to box. He was near enough 10 seconds behind Max Verstappen as he comes into the pit lane. Ferrari pit crew are ready. And that's not a bad stop. Could have been a little bit faster, but another new set of hard tyres are bolted on to his Ferrari, and through goes Perez, through goes Piastri, Alonso, and it could look like Tsunoda will sneak through as well. And we're getting a busy pit lane now, Harry.
It's starting to get busy once again, absolutely. Hamilton in, 3.4 seconds, and then he's out again. So not the quickest of pit stop times we've seen. I mean, we've seen sub 2 seconds this year, haven't we, at certain racetracks. So 3.4 for Hamilton, who feeds out just behind Sainz and ahead of Albon in 12th position. But this battle brewing between Russell and Norris, and Lance Stroll is kind of putting his oar in at the moment as well. He's not in this battle really, but he's 7th on the road. Make that 8th as Russell finally, with the aid of DRS, gets Stroll down the straight into the braking zone of turn 6. Norris will be next up to tackle the Canadian.
These pit stops now are so critical for where people will end up in the championship.
You can focus go ahead of me if you want.
Understood, mate.
Verstappen saying they can pit his teammate before him if they want. Normally the leading car would get priority, but Verstappen happy to give that one up. Norris all over the back of Stroll through the left-hander of turn 9, can't find a way through on that occasion.
Yeah, if you've come into pit now, these are probably your last pit stops. So in terms of strategy, the team have done all they can to try and help you. They've done as quick a pit stop as they can. Now it's up to the driver alone to fight for positions and fight for the millions of pounds that are on the line with every position.
$9 to $10 million approximately between every constructor position. And the other thing as well that we haven't really mentioned is that wind tunnel time is also affected when it comes to your constructor position. The lower down you finish, the more wind time tunnel you get as Piastri comes into the pits, Jenny.
And also money for the team. They're all on certain levels of prize payout, and if you do well, you might get £10,000 as a bonus. So it's
go on then.
Which
Why not?
crucially
I'll take that.
isn't included in the cost cap for those team members. If they get a bonus at the end of the year, depending on where they finish, they can have them. It's a good chunk of money up for grabs for some of the team members. Norris finally gets through, or is trying to get through, down the main straight with DRS on Lance Stroll. This the battle for 6th on the road, and Norris makes it look fairly easy with DRS late on the brakes down the inside of Stroll, and he is through up into 6th and can now start chasing down George Russell. Meanwhile, Russell's teammate Lewis Hamilton gets through on the other Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. The former teammates outside of the points as it currently stands. Hamilton in 11th skates through. Alonso demoted down to 12th. It's Verstappen who leads. Perez 16 seconds the gap. Tsunoda, Leclerc, Russell the top 5. We are still awaiting a second phase of pit stops to unfold. Norris, Stroll, Ocon, Sainz, Piastri the top 10. Hamilton, Alonso, Albon, Joe, Ricciardo the top 15. Make that the top 16 as Sargent gets through on Ricciardo. Gasly 17th, Hülkenberg, Bottas and Magnussen the top 20.
So Verstappen, they can play this quite well, can't they, Red Bull, with the margin that Verstappen has now. Tsunoda and Leclerc, this is going to get a nice tasty battle. We're going to get down the back straight.
We have the slowest car on the street, by far.
Every time Fernando talks about a slow car on the straight, it reminds me of back in the, I can't remember
Japan,
the year, but yeah, GP2 engine, but not for Charles Leclerc, as he's got the aid of DRS and swoops by Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki will become under even more pressure now, and that will be from George Russell, who I'm sure can really sense a podium here.
And those podiums have been few and far between for George Russell this year. One podium to his name, a couple of slips from his grasp. It's been a very different story to his first season with Mercedes. This year has not quite gone Russell's way, so to try and end it with perhaps a last gasp podium on the final race of the year would see him off feeling good into the winter break. His teammate, meanwhile, languishing down in 12th at the moment, so still embroiled in that battle with Alonso. I think Alonso must have got through once again then on Hamilton in the last lap. And Alonso pitted, fed out in front of Hamilton, and that was...
Yeah, they just brake tested me. I got brake tested like...
Wow.
Right before the braking zone.
So Alonso came out of the pits, and this is the sound of Alonso, just about in front of Hamilton, and then slams onto the brakes.
Yeah, he does.
As way too early, brake tests him. But I mean, I'm wondering, that would have been the braking zone for the old chicane before they took it out in 2021.
That was for the DRS detection zone, Harry. So he wanted Hamilton to come past so he could have the aid of DRS down into turn 5. So I mean, you're not allowed to hit the brakes, or well, you're entitled to do what you want, but it doesn't mean it's correct. So he obviously thought, well, I'm going to lift off here. I think he'd lifted off. I don't think he hit the brakes, as Esteban Ocon now has just lost 2 places in one corner to Piastri and Carlos Sainz. Sainz has made his way up into the top 10, but how long for now, as Ocon has a little look around the outside going into turn 9, but just can't quite get the speed to get through. But I'm sure it'll flash up on our screen any moment that they're having a look at that now. Lewis Hamilton has reported it.
Noted, driving erratically, Alonso and Hamilton. So the race stewards have noted that. We'll see if that goes any further, but a little cheeky there from Fernando Alonso on the face of things. While you were chatting through that, Ocon losing 2 positions to Piastri and Sainz. It got very heated actually at one point. Piastri and Sainz getting very close to Ocon, almost the filling in that sandwich there, and it all started down the end into the braking zone of turn 6. Piastri with a lock-up down the inside of Ocon, who then, feeling vulnerable, Sainz senses it and slings it round the outside to get through. Battle for DRS. Ocon tries to come back at them, but no such luck. So Piastri and Sainz through on Ocon. Piastri 8th, Sainz 9th, Ocon in 10th. Verstappen leads. Perez, Leclerc, Russell, Tsunoda the top 5. Norris, Stroll are the top 8. just outside of the points at the moment are Alonso and Hamilton, then Albon, Ricciardo and Gasly, the top 15. Sargent, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Magnussen and Zhou, the top 20. And all 20 cars still in this race. Lap 41 of 58 of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the 22nd and final race of the 2023 Formula One season. The lights are fully on around this track now. The sun has gone down and it is a push to the end. A race so far where tyres have once again proven the key factor here, Alice.
Yeah, and I have to say that, they should be doing well. They're in the best car, of course. The fantastic machinery that we've been able to witness this season, which is that Red Bull. But Max Verstappen and Perez especially, he's doing a great job on his tyres. These two yet to take in a second stop.
How is Lewis getting on?
Yeah, he's doing a good job at the moment. Having a fight of his own.
What does that mean? How are we doing in the championship? Are we good?
All we can do is the best race that we can do. We're fine at the moment.
I was going to say, I think that's very caring from George there on the radio, but then that second statement came along. Obviously, he's concerned about how they're doing in the Constructors' Championship. Well, Jenny, give us an update on that.
Well, they're in a battle for second at the moment, and as it stands, going head-to-head with Ferrari, they're behind by 1 point. So George is reading it exactly as it is. He is doing all he can, and he needs Lewis to just raise his game a tiny bit to get into the points.
Well, Russell then, bit fiery on the radio as it currently stands. We're just seeing a little replay of Logan Sargent having a great battle or Daniel Ricciardo having a great battle with Alex Albon. The Williams and the Alpha Tauri, both outside of the points at the moment, but the Williams keen to get in front of the Alpha Tauri in that battle for 7th in the Constructors. Gasly and Logan Sargent just behind them having their own little battle. It's been a bit of a nightmare race once again for Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, having shown such good pace in qualifying. He started in 10th, he out-qualified his teammate Ocon, but the odds have been turned around. Here's Sainz.
Oh, it's our race, Ricky. I'm a bit lost.
Try to go as long as possible, waiting for a safety car.
Now that's Sainz on the radio there, trying to get a glimmer of what the strategy is as Tsunoda gets passed for 5th place by Lando Norris at the end of the straight into turn 6 and 7.
Is it fair to say, once again, Ferrari just like, see what happens?
Yeah, they seem a little bit, I don't want to say lost, but we're still all sat here wondering why they didn't run the soft tyre. Clearly they have much more information than we do, but I feel like they might be waiting for a safety car for a while, seeing that we didn't have any of those last year. So, but anyway, battle continues out on track. Fernando Alonso charges past down into turn 9, the Esteban Ocon in his Alpine, which drops Esteban now out of the top 10 totally. And Perez has just got the call to box. That's the sound you can hear of the pit crew getting to work on the Red Bull, and a very decent stop for them, 2.2, and Perez is on his way.
Perez with another comeback drive, having started 9th after his fastest lap time was deleted in Q3. We had that incident earlier on between Alonso and Hamilton. Hamilton accusing Alonso of brake testing him. That has been reviewed with no further investigation for driving erratically as they hit the brakes for turn 5.
Yeah, as I said, it didn't sound like he did brake. He lifted. So we've seen some clever play with that before. That was Sainz, wasn't it, down the Singapore Grand Prix? He was being really clever with how he used the DRS there, as now Stroll is on pit exit, and Max Verstappen, our race leader, has got the call to come into the pits. And Lewis Hamilton, he is making moves. He's been listening to Jenny as well as Toto, making his way up now past Esteban Ocon, which moves him up into 10th place. So he does, I think, though, need to maybe move a little bit further up. Let's have a little look at the points. Still only there's now 2 points in it, should I say. So they need something special, do they, Mercedes?
I think Sainz has still got to pit, so he's due a second pit stop. As you said, they're waiting for a safety car, but if it doesn't go to plan and he has to pit again, that might catapult Hamilton further forward again.
Yeah, Sainz, Tsunoda, I think Albon as well as Bottas still, all holding on at the moment with one stop to their name. Verstappen's just pitted and come out in the lead. He had over a 25-second buffer to Leclerc, and the pit loss is around about 22 seconds under normal speeds when they put the pit limiter on to trundle down at 80 kilometres an hour down the pit lane. Verstappen now with just over 5 seconds a gap to Leclerc in second, Russell third, Norris fourth, Tsunoda fifth, and that might well become sixth, because this is the sound of Sergio Perez getting the tow with a bit of DRS down the straight towards turn 6, and before they're even into the braking zone, Perez makes the move for fifth, and Tsunoda drops down into sixth. Piastri is 7th, Sainz 8th, Alonso 9th, Hamilton the top 10, Ocon, Stroll, Ricciardo, Gasly, Hulkenberg the top 15. Albon's just pitted, coming out in 16th, Joe 17th, Bottas 18th, Magnussen, Sargent the top 20. An incident coming up as well involving Lewis Hamilton, been noted by the stewards for a pit stop infringement. So we'll bring you up to speed. Did we see what that was? I can't remember seeing that.
No, I didn't see that.
Well, we'll wait and see what that was for Lewis Hamilton. He's currently down in 10th at the moment, but we'll see if that gets elevated by the race stewards to anything more. Here's Verstappen's radio.
Dancers are pushing a lot. Could we do something there or not?
Yeah, stand by.
Verstappen, downshifts are pushing a lot. What does that mean, Alice?
So just as he's trying to downshift, the car is sort of, say, lunging forward. They don't have to, like the old style cars, have to blip the throttle on as they go down. There's an auto blip, and these gearboxes are so incredible. So he will just be feeling it. Just as he's braking and down changing, it's not slowing down as he would have liked, and those down changes are just pushing the car forward ever so slightly. So Max Verstappen's on the radio, even though he's got a 6.3-second gap. He feels that there's still room for improvement there. Now the sound you can hear is Fernando Alonso, who's having a look round the outside of Carlos Sainz, heading down into turn 6. Has a little bit of a wobble just as he tries to turn in, but he will have the benefit of DRS on the exit of 7. But he's struggling there ever so slightly on the traction of the Aston Martin.
And just a reminder, we have 2 strikes for track limits.
Yeah, I know.
Understood.
That was Leclerc's radio there. Track limits. Saw a lot of lap times deleted in qualifying, and it's once again an issue that race control are monitoring during the race. His teammate under pressure. Sainz from Alonso down in 8th at the moment. Alonso 9th as they make their way into the final corners of the lap, through the fast blind right-hander of turn 15, then one more through 16. Alonso following Sainz for the time being, with Hamilton lurking in the background behind them. 8th, 9th and 10th, the final points paying positions currently held by those 3 drivers. Lap 46 of 58, Verstappen leads Leclerc and Russell, and the big overarching battles we are looking out for are that battle for second in the constructors between Ferrari and Mercedes. And speak of Ferrari, Sainz has succumbed to Alonso into the left-hander of turn 5. Alonso down the inside in his Aston Martin, gets the move done, but then Sainz comes back at Alonso trying to get the tow, but Alonso managed to get the move done before the DRS zone, so that gave Alonso the DRS as well. Sainz trying to get back into the tow, into the slipstream, but Alonso managing to hold in front as they head through the chicane. Then the next dose of DRS comes in the run down to turn 9. This time Sainz gets the DRS, but he isn't close enough to make the move stick. Sainz settles for 9th, Alonso up into 8th.
Yeah, frustratingly for us, the pit stop infringement that Lewis Hamilton allegedly, or his pit crew have done, will be investigated after the race. So hopefully that's not going to impact this result, as battles still continue to rage on. Lando Norris makes a good jump in the Drivers' Championship. He will be, as it stands, finishing 4th. Leclerc will hop up in front of his teammate and Alonso, finishing 5th. But Lando Norris is now going to be under significant pressure from Sergio Perez.
Through turn 5 they go. That brings you out onto the straight. The Red Bull of Perez with DRS right in the slipstream of Norris. Perez moves to the inside, late on the brakes. How late does he go? There's contact between Perez and Norris. Norris has to turn in at some stage, finds Perez's Red Bull there. Bit of contact. Norris takes to the escape road, emerges in front, holding on for 4th for now. Perez down to 5th. Think we saw a bit of carbon fibre fly off Lando Norris's McLaren. I'm sure we'll hear from them both in a moment as the battle heats up between Sainz and Hamilton as well through the scene where we just witnessed Norris and Perez go side by side and make contact. Sainz and Hamilton don't make such contact, and Sainz on the defensive tries to keep Hamilton at bay with DRS though through the left-hander of turn 9. Hamilton sweeps round the outside and puts that Mercedes in front of the Ferrari as they make the run down to the right-hander on turn 12. It's Hamilton in front now in 9th, Sainz down to 10th.
Beautiful move there by Lewis Hamilton, sweeping around the outside. We're getting a replay now of this incident between Perez and Norris.
He just crashed into me.
We see.
So that's Norris reporting the incident there, and it is under investigation. And yeah, Perez was not going to stop, was he, essentially?
He just turned into me.
Yeah, we saw.
Perez there saying on the radio, Norris just turned into him. Well,
doesn't look like that to me, I'm afraid.
Here we go though, take 2 perhaps. Red Bull, Perez right onto the back of Norris. Perez moves down the inside once again into turn 6. Full left-hand lock. This time there's no contact. Perez makes his way through on Norris. Can Norris stick with Perez though into turn 8 with the DRS? Perez moves to the inside, then to the right, snaking his way down towards turn 9. He finally darts to the inside. Perez on the inside. Norris round the outside of the McLaren. Tries to hang on to it, can't do it. Perez holds on and makes the move stick finally.
Yeah, but that's just dangerous driving. He had loads of space.
And that's Norris on the radio, not happy with Perez. 10 laps to go. Perez up into 4th, Norris down to 5th. But that incident between those two is under investigation. Jenny.
Right, I've been ferreting around about Hamilton and what this pit stop infringement might be. It's to do with Article 34.13, if you wanted to know, which is about team personnel must have the appropriate kit when they go into the pit lane, and apparently someone did not or was not wearing the appropriate eye protection during the stop.
Gasly has got one as well.
Yeah.
So we're getting their goggles today.
So they will have to go to the FIA, to the stewards room, and they'll go through all the footage and see if they can prove or disprove that that's the case. But if that's... I'm just trying to work out what the penalty will be. It doesn't say in the actual infringement what the penalty could be. So, sorry, I'll try and work out that.
Never forget your goggles. Rule number 1, isn't it? While we were watching and that fascinating battle between Perez and Norris, Piastri managed to get in front of Tsunoda. So Piastri up into 6th, Tsunoda down to 7th. Tsunoda's hanging on here, having only done 1 stop, currently in 7th. And at the moment, I don't think it's enough to overhaul Williams in the Constructors. It would be 1 point, wouldn't it? So they need Ricciardo to try and get up into the top 10, but Ricciardo's down in 13th spot at the moment with Stroll, Ocon and Sainz in the middle of himself and points. So it's going to go right to the wire, and there are still some battles happening further down in the field, not over points but over pride, as Albon swoops past the Haas of Hülkenberg into turn 6 and the right-hander of 7. Albon secures 15th, Hülkenberg down into 16th and starts to fall behind the Thai driver, even with a little bit of DRS to aid him stay within a second. Lap 50 of 58 for the final Grand Prix of the year at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi. It's Verstappen who is currently leading this race and looking to secure his 19th win of the season. He's got 8.7 seconds in front of Leclerc, Russell, Perez, Norris, the top 5, Piastri, Tsunoda, Alonso, Hamilton and Sainz, the top 10. Nice battle happening just outside the top 10 though to bring you up to speed with. It's between Esteban Ocon in the Alpine and Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Stroll behind Ocon, and as they come into the left-hander of turn 5, which brings you out onto the straight with DRS, Stroll has the advantage, moves to the inside, they're side by side. Now Stroll into the braking zone and through on the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. Doesn't snatch a break. Nice and tidy for Stroll, who gets himself up into 11. A tyre advantage for him as well on the medium compounded tyre. Ocon on the harder compounded tyre.
And some more pit stop infringements coming up. Car 1, Verstappen. Car 2, Sargent and Joe as well.
Yeah, let me know how much is the gap between Perez and Russell, so maybe we can make them fight a bit more. Because yeah, if we see that we are not second in the constructors.
Understood.
So that's Leclerc chatting about trying to secure P2 in the constructors. Right now, if it ended like this, Ferrari would be behind Mercedes in the constructors championship. So if they're feeling a little bit under pressure, if Perez gets through on Russell, it could well be tricky times. 5-second time penalty though for Sergio Perez for causing a collision. So the stewards have deemed that collision with Lando Norris was worthy of a 5-second penalty, and we've had our discussions about 5-second time penalties throughout this season. I don't think that really means anything.
No, I mean, it was Perez's fault. However, because we have got that runoff there, you can scuttle on through. So Norris did exactly that. He didn't give the position back, which I don't think he was entitled to, because he was forced out the way by Perez. But now a 5-second penalty coming his way. The gap between him and Norris is 3.3 seconds, but we're getting more as Russell.
So Perez, car behind 3.2. He does have a 5-second penalty, but he must not finish in front of us for the championship positions.
So that's going to be a big out there. That's George Russell's engineer informing him of the update of the penalty, but that's going to be a big help, isn't it, for Russell and his Mercedes. Not so much for Ferrari though. But just touching back on this pit stop infringements, which is bizarre, we seem to be having so many of them today, but I'm just getting told that it's actually fines that they will get, so it won't actually affect the positions out on track.
Verstappen, Sargent and Joe the next to be investigated after the race. So that is significant then, although, you know, a 5-second time penalty in terms of the actual incident may not be deemed as being severe enough. That does have wider implications for this battle for second.
But why did you give us a penalty? I was ahead.
No, you weren't.
That was Perez saying, why are you giving me a penalty? But you don't believe he was ahead, Alice.
No, he wasn't. He basically just braked too late. Lando had to turn into the corner at some point, and he just charged into the side. It's lucky for both of those that they hit wheel to wheel, because it would have done a lot more damage to either one of the cars if they didn't hit wheel to wheel. But unfortunately, Sergio, not agreeing with you on that one. Certainly at fault with that collision.
Lap 53 of 58. Verstappen now with over 10.5 seconds of a gap up in front. Leclerc second, Russell third, Perez fourth, Norris fifth. Perez with a 5-second time penalty, Norris within 5 seconds as it currently stands. Piastri sixth, Tsunoda's in seventh and holding on, but Alonso is coming for him in eighth in the Aston Martin. Hamilton and Sainz round out the top 10. Jenny Gow.
Just thinking, it's been another impeccable performance from Verstappen. He's given us so much this year and dominated so many times, but this one, he's kept his nose clean and he's been practically perfect in every way.
I mean, that could sum up the season, couldn't it, for Verstappen, once again showing his form just when we thought maybe in qualifying it was really close between all the teams. It was one of those sessions where nobody quite knew where they were. Everybody was either having issues or not having issues, but everybody was in the same boat. We didn't think Verstappen might get on the front row for qualifying, but then when it matters, he does, and he secures pole position, and right now is looking to take his 54th win of his career, which would elevate him above Sebastian Vettel and put him third on the all-time winners list, only behind Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton. And that is imperious for Verstappen with just 5 laps remaining. I don't think Sainz is going to hold on to the final points paying position down in 10th at the moment. I think Stroll might well be able to catch up to the back of him. Sainz last lap around was a 1:29.6. Stroll's a 1:28.8. So I think that's something to watch out for. Ferrari are really only going to be bagging some big points from Leclerc, with Sainz's comeback drive from 16th not going his way. Perez, though, still on in 4th, and the battle between himself and George Russell, but he does have that 5-second time penalty, which, as it currently stands, how far away is Norris? He's 4.8 seconds at the moment behind Perez, so he is crucially still within that gap. Jenny?
Sainz in the Ferrari is still going to have to pit. He's used 2 sets of hard tyres, so when he pits, he's going to come out in P16. It's going to be nowhere for Ferrari, and that alludes to the question that he asked earlier: what strategy are we going for? Well, just go out there and try, but it's not worked.
I mean, we question, don't we, sometimes Ferrari's strategy that goes on. And I'm surprised they didn't decide to stop on the start on a soft tyre. But of course they have more data than we do. And he's doing, I'd say he's not done a bad job really on the hard tyre. But I want to give a shout out to Yuki Tsunoda. I think he's done a really, really good job, a solid job. Currently in 7th place, but he's going to probably get overtaken with 5 laps left to go by Fernando Alonso, who we're riding on board with now. That's the sound you can hear. They enter the final corner. 9/10 of a second is the gap between these two. But he's done a brilliant job in that AlphaTauri, leading the race for a while, whilst others around him pitted. But a good job, so well done, Yuki.
And this was the first time a Japanese driver has led a Formula One race since Takuma Sato at the 2004 European Grand Prix. So shout out to Yuki Tsunoda, clinging on for 7th at the moment. It wouldn't do anything for AlphaTauri in the constructors right now. Williams would still hold on to that 7th place, but a blinding drive so far for Tsunoda to bid farewell to his team principal, Franz Tost, who calls it a day on his team principal career with AlphaTauri at the end of this race. Perez made it up into 3rd. He's passed Russell. He's 1.7 seconds in front of Russell and trying to close in on Leclerc. He's 3.5 seconds behind Leclerc. So could this be a battle with 3 laps to go? He's going to have to catch him at a rapid rate of knots. Sainz still holding on in 10th, down half a second between himself and Stroll. That's the sound you're hearing in the background. The Canadian racer in the Aston Martin trying to get through for that final points paying position on lap 56 of 58 of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final race of the season, with a post-season test to happen next week, and then a bit of time off, but not too much, before they're straight back into it again and preparing for the car launches and the pre-season testing.
Yeah, it's a busy time in Formula One throughout all year. Again, they get the factories shut down in the summer break, but it's still busy all year round. And Max Verstappen, he has reached the end of lap 55, and he has led 1,000 laps in this 2023 season, which, I mean, what a stat. I mean, he's got many to his name. He's broken many barriers. He's kind of torn up the record book, hasn't he, really, and put down his own record. So a fantastic job by him. And there's another one, 1,000 laps for this season.
That is a good one. If you want to listen to something else, Adrian Newey on the podcast sat down with Andrew Benson, and they talk about the Red Bull, about this car, about Max Verstappen. It's fascinating, and he will, of course, be sitting there sketching out, looking at flow, looking at how the car's going to work, and trying to come back with an even better car next year.
Sainz has been told to pit. He's losing time, and Stroll is coming for him, and he's currently in 10th, and he has to come into the pits now, does Carlos Sainz. So he's been called by the team to box. He will fall outside of the points. We're also keeping a keen eye on Sergio Perez in 3rd. He has a 5-second time penalty. He's currently 2.8 seconds clear of George Russell. And this is crucial in that fight for second in the constructors between Ferrari and Mercedes. It could end up with a tie here, and on countback it would go Ferrari's way, courtesy of Carlos Sainz's win in Singapore. So it's going right to the wire for second in the constructors. Here's Leclerc.
Tell me the gap between Checo and Russell. If there's less than 5 seconds, I'll give him the slipstream. Then I'll let him pass for the last sector. He's got 5 seconds anyway.
So Leclerc saying he wants the gap, and if he's close enough, he'll let Perez in front of him, essentially. So really playing the team game, trying to secure that second in the constructors for Ferrari. So Leclerc, I mean, he's 15 seconds back from Verstappen, and as we start the final lap, Perez is 1.8 seconds behind Leclerc. He's got 3 seconds over Russell as they cross the line. I'm not sure how they're going to do this, but anything can happen. It's the final race, it's the final lap of this 2023 F1 season. Verstappen on course to take his 19th win of the season. Sainz has fallen out of the points. He pitted, he stuck the softs on. He's down in 15th position as it currently stands. Tsunoda has just been passed by Alonso as well. Tsunoda in 8th, and he's got Hamilton all over the back of him. Perez through on Leclerc. Perez down, up into second. Leclerc down to third now. So he has let that move happen. And as we're on the final lap of this race, Leclerc now behind in third. He sacrificed that podium position, but I'm not sure what that's going to do for the constructors.
Well, I mean, I'm confused.
Unless he just simply doesn't have the pace, because right now, as it currently stands, Mercedes would clinch it. So let's see how it all unfolds. Unless Perez, of course, remember, has that 5-second time penalty.
He does, so maybe Leclerc is going to want to try and fend off Russell.
Well, he hasn't had to fend off anybody pretty much all season long. One final corner for Max Verstappen. He wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The 3-time champion has had the season of seasons. That makes it 19 wins in Formula One this year. He takes 54 career wins in Grand Prix racing to go third on the all-time list. Another fantastic display of racecraft and team effort from Max Verstappen and Red Bull. But there are still battles to be had across the line. Perez does come home in second, 1.5 seconds ahead of Leclerc. Russell fourth, Norris fifth, Piastri in sixth. Alonso's going to come across in seventh. Tsunoda will take the flag in eighth in front of Hamilton, and Stroll should round out the last of the points paying positions. And as we get a little replay of the sound of Leclerc, who really does get out of the way of Sergio Perez coming into the left-hander of turn 5, Alice.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to read this as is he was then going to try and hold up Russell to then allow Sergio to get the gap over Russell, so Russell wouldn't get third place, if that makes sense. Confusing one, but there we go. We're seeing a replay of Lewis Hamilton getting past Yuki Tsunoda, but he doesn't. He gets a kick of oversteer, and Tsunoda goes through and keeps 8th place, but Max Verstappen ends the year with so many records. Most single race wins, consecutive race wins of 10, most podium finishes 21, and highest points total and largest championship winning margin. What a year for Max Verstappen.
The fireworks erupt over this Yas Marina circuit as the checkered flag comes down for the 2023 F1 season. Mercedes, as I have it, take second in the constructors, Ferrari in third, McLaren edge Aston Martin for fourth, and there are no changes further down with Alpine sixth. Williams cling on to seventh despite a great drive from Yuki Tsunoda. AlphaTauri finish 8th in front of Alfa Romeo, and Haas, for only the second time in their history, finish 10th and last in the constructors.
All missions complete. What a year. Well done, my friend.
Another unbelievable race, guys. Very lovely. And we did it, GP. Michelin.
Yeah, Max, you have been absolutely mighty this year. 19 victories. You've led over 1,000 laps. You've smashed it out the park. It has been an absolute privilege watching you drive this car that's been built by a team of brilliant people, and we're all incredibly proud of you, and it's a very, very special in-lap, so take it in, enjoy every moment, and enjoy this last bit of RB19.
Yeah, well, we're there, Christian. I mean, what an unbelievable year. So let's say thank you to everyone. I also want to say a quick thank you to Franz Tost. He had a lot of us under his wings, and this was his last race. So
Nice tribute there at the end for Max Verstappen to Franz Tost as he lines up on the grid, and what's become obligatory for the final race of the season begins. The donuts and those rear tyres spin up, the red fireworks burst into life above him, and we can barely see the Red Bull through the tyre smoke. Sublime donuts as he finishes them off and pulls perfectly into the #1 spot for Max Verstappen. Perez, with that 5-second time penalty, gets pushed down to 4th at the end, so the rest of the podium is Leclerc in 2nd, and Russell gets his 2nd podium of the season in 3rd. So Leclerc was going to try and back Russell up. He let Perez through, but he wanted to stay within the 5 seconds of him, trying to make it so that the penalty Perez would receive dropped him behind the Ferrari, but crucially ahead of the Mercedes, if you're following. That didn't work, essentially, and Perez ended up in 4th. So that was what Leclerc was trying to do.
Yeah, pretty much what I said.
So I just had to re-say that for my own brain.
You probably said it better than I did, but yes, that's what they were trying to do.
And that didn't work, but what did work was that Red Bull with Max Verstappen, who climbs out of the cockpit, celebrates, roars from the grandstand, goes straight over to the president of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, as there's a scream from the grandstands as well for Charles Leclerc, who waves to the fans as he gets out of his Ferrari for the final time in 2023, Jenny.
To have the bandwidth to think of what Charles Leclerc was thinking whilst he's driving a Formula One car, and then let the move happen and calculate all of that. Bandwidth is something you talk about a lot in F1. Max Verstappen has so much. He could play a crossword at the same time as winning a Formula One race at the moment. He's so good at it. And the new podium awaits the winner. I like it.
Yes, the Monza-style podium. It's sort of, you go out across a platform and it's above the main straight, so you get a great view from the grandstand. So the podium ceremony will take place. Another roar of applause for George Russell, who emerges from the Mercedes, having sealed 3rd. Perez 4th, Norris 5th, Piastri 6th, Alonso, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Stroll the top 10. And what that has done as well for the Drivers' Championship, Alonso manages to finish in 4th, 206 points, level with Charles Leclerc, but on countback it goes Alonso's way. Leclerc in 5th, Norris 6th, Sainz, the big loser, down to 7th.
Look at how close that was. I know it's only for 4th, but imagine what could have been. Alonso 206, as you said, Leclerc 206 again, Norris 205, and Sainz on 200. That is so tight. I can't remember a tighter battle for 4th.
It's going to make the headlines.
Oh yeah,
that's for sure.
You know it.
Well, that does bring an end to the 2023 F1 season, and it certainly was a strategic race to get our heads around, but good to see Russell managing to finish off what has been a tough season for himself with Mercedes, with a podium. His teammate managing to get a couple of points in 9th. Outside of the points, Ricciardo, Ocon, Gasly, Albon and Hulkenberg, the top 15. Sargent, Joe, Sainz ended up down in 18th. Trying to Bottas and Kevin Magnussen. We'll hear from our top 3 though. I'm going to start with George Russell. David Coulthard's chatting to him.
On that 3rd place, well appreciated by the crowd here. That's made the difference. You have secured 2nd in the Constructors' Championship for the team, and that means a lot.
It means a huge amount. There's so many people back at the factory, Brackley, Brixworth, who've worked so hard to achieve this. It's been a really challenging season. I've let the side down a couple of times this year, so pleased to have brought it across the line today. It was tight, Checo at the end. I thought Charles was going to back me up, but respect to him for keeping it clean. And can chill out now.
Yeah, you've got a sweat on your brow. You had to really fight hard there. You knew that Checo very late in the race got that 5-second penalty. Were you able to compute what was happening with Charles and the gaps, or were the team keeping you informed?
I mean, I came out of the pits on the second set of hards. I was managing a bit, and then Checo just came from nowhere. So I don't know what happened there. They had great pace. It was really tense at the end. The tyres were dropping off, but just really pleased to have secured P2 for the team. And I'm sure everyone will have a few drinks tonight.
Well, you say that, but you also told me ahead of the Grand Prix you've not been feeling 100% for a couple of weeks. So
I mean, I was probably coughing 4 times a lap then, so it was pretty miserable out there, which didn't help things. But as I said, just a massive relief to have brought the car home, P3. Can't believe it's only the second podium of the year, but really happy to end the season this way.
Well, it's a very well-deserved podium, and congratulations on behalf of the team. So we're just being joined by Charles as he applies all his jewellery. Very nice. Would you like to finish putting them on before the interview, or?
Sorry?
Would you like to finish putting your jewellery on?
No, it's okay. I can
You'll
speak
hold
before.
it. Okay. Or is it a gift?
Sorry? No, it's not a gift. It's actually a sponsor.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just being generous. Charles, great thinking in the cockpit there at the end to allow Checo to overtake you. Again, I wasn't part of the final part of the commentary there because I was coming here to do the interviews. Was that something that you discussed with the team beforehand, or it was all in those last few moments?
No, it was all in the last few minutes because Checo had 5 seconds penalty, so we had to help him in a way for him to finish in front of George with a 5 seconds. So I tried to give him the DRS and a slipstream, but that unfortunately wasn't enough. So on one hand, I'm really happy because on a weekend like this, honestly, there wasn't one thing we could have done better as a team. I think it was definitely not a given that we were in the second fastest car this weekend, but we did an incredible job doing everything right, strategy, qualifying. It's just a shame that we finished third in the Constructors. That's all that mattered to me in this end of season, and we didn't achieve that. But anyway, I would like to thank the team for doing such an incredible work and for working so incredibly hard since the first race. We knew that it was going to be an uphill season because we lacked performance compared to where we wanted, but the team has done an incredible job pushing until the last race.
Yeah, we're here. Just put us back in the race start. There looked like there was 2 opportunities for you to go wheel to wheel with Max. Turn 1, of course, and then down at the end of the back straight into 6. What was happening there? Because it looked like you'd done enough to get the pass done.
Yeah, I obviously wanted to try and get that first place, but we also know that in the race we lack some pace compared to them. So even if I would have passed Max there, I probably would have got overtaken again 3 or 4 laps. And at the end, my only target was to beat the Mercedes, so I didn't want to lose too much tire juice and also time with Max. But yeah, it was fun.
Okay, Charles, congratulations on finishing the season with a podium.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, at the end of what's been an incredible season for Max, unbelievable 19th victory of the year. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, of course, an incredible season. It was a bit emotional on the end lap. You know, it was the last time I was sitting in the car, which has, of course, given me a lot. So, yeah, I'm, of course, very proud to win also here the last race. But, yeah, I have to say a big thank you to everyone at Red Bull. It's just been an incredible year. It will be hard to do something similar again, but we definitely enjoyed this year.
It looked like it. And can I just compliment you on your donuts at the end?
Yeah, you told me how to do it. So.
Yeah, well, you did it beautifully and positioned your car there. Now, how would you reflect, beyond thanking your team here, this is where you won your first world title. You wrapped up your third much earlier in the season. Difficult to imagine it can get better than this.
Yeah, it will be very hard to have another season like this. We know that. Of course, you always want to do better, but sometimes doing better is not only race wins and potentially winning the championship. But we'll see. You know, we are working hard for next year to have again a very competitive car. For sure, all the other teams out there, they want to try and beat us next year, and we are ready for the battle. But in the meantime, we are going to enjoy a little bit this year as well.
Okay, well, Max, as you are the champion, maybe the final words to the fans that you've seen all around the world, not just here in Abu Dhabi, but it's been an exceptional year for Formula One.
Yeah, it's been incredible, sold out in basically every place we went to. Great fan support, and again also here. I hope you guys enjoyed the race today as well, and you saw all your favorite drivers do well, and of course, thank you very much for cheering us on.
Well, Max, you have 97 days until it all starts again in Bahrain. Enjoy your holiday.
Thank you.
97 days till we do it all again. It's been a really weird season. Like, when someone's so dominant, when a car is so dominant, they join forces, you're left feeling the spectacle has somewhat subtracted because you wanted a good fight, but you can't explain how good that pairing has been, Harry.
No, I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, and that will of course highlight, how he's not just breaking, overall Formula One records and setting new ones, but he's just left the rest of the field for dust, including his teammate, finishing with well over double the amount of points to his teammate in effectively the same car. It's a really tough balance because, we can say you've got to appreciate what they have done and what Red Bull, the feat of engineering to produce that car and the talent of Max Verstappen, but we want 2, 3, 4 cars in the hunt. We want 4 different teams to be battling out for the podium positions. I can get excited about 7th place in the Constructors, but I can understand how that might not appeal to the mass audience. So the field is close behind Red Bull, and that's important to remember. So let's just everybody close in on Red Bull, and then happy days.
Absolutely. Alice Powell is half an eye on the Spurs score and half an eye on Max Verstappen's replay of his donuts. I mean, what Max said was true. It's been a great year for Formula One, with grandstands adorned with people loving what's happening, and Drive to Survive, all that momentum that's gone behind Formula One, going to Vegas for the first time. I mean, it's hit new heights, hasn't it?
No, it certainly has. There has been some great races this season. We touched on it over the weekend, haven't we? But there certainly has been some great races. We were spoiled in 2021, and I think we were just expecting, aren't we now, since that season, to have a season like that. Obviously, maybe without such controversy at the end, but still, there has been some great battles. We have seen some great races. Will that change for next year? I mean, they're looking very strong, aren't they, Red Bull? Unless someone does anything very dramatic over the winter, then I can't see that changing. But who knows? Because look at the likes of McLaren that started off the season so terribly. Look where they ended up finishing, at the end of the season, 5th and 6th, and had podiums throughout the year as well.
Yeah, there is life in the old dog yet. That's what we'll say. Of course, we'll have the season review. We'll have the post-race podcast. Codpast is not right.
We'll go with it.
After we go off air, so plenty to stay tuned for as we head into the winter. But thank you so much to everyone who's been a part of our broadcast team across the season. There's lots of people that have made up this merry band of sailors. So thank you to all of you, and of course thank you to IMG. This has been a IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.